We're live. Hi there. This is Matthew Hill from Hill and Ponton, along with Carol Ponton, and we're excited to be here for another live Q&A. And we're gonna obviously answer as many questions as we can, but we wanted to start off with, what I'd call a trap that's been laid by the VA in this new system. If you have filed a new system in the Appeals Management Act error, if you will, they call it the AMA. You know now that you have a lot of different choices. So if you apply and let's just say you get denied, or you get a rating you don't agree with, you have several choices from there. You can do what's called higher level review, which means it stays in the regional office, and someone who's more senior, is basically what they've said, will review your case. Now, in that instance, you can add no new evidence. Okay, they just look at what the person did below and they decide, was it done right or not. You can also do what's called a supplemental claim within a year, where you basically reapply but with new evidence. And if you do it within the year, your effective date is the date that you applied that first claim. Okay.
It should be, but remember, the VA will not do it. They will immediately just give you the date that you applied the supplemental claim. So you would have to appeal that and go back to the original date.
Right. And so there's that way, or the other option is to appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals. Okay. If you appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals, you file a notice of disagreement, and then you have three different lanes to the board. You have the hearing lane, which is kind of the traditional lane that everybody always did, even in the old system. And you have what's called the evidence lane, meaning you have a certain amount of time to submit new evidence. And then you have the direct lane. So kind of going through those, the pluses and minuses here, or the benefits.
Now, the direct lane means that you don't put any new evidence in.
Right. So the benefit of the direct lane, so it's almost in reverse order as far as speed. If you go direct lane, they are saying it should be under a year. You should have a decision. We've seen decisions in 3 weeks. We've seen where we're waiting over a year, well over a year for a decision. So it's all over the place. The evidence lane is also something they're saying hopefully just over a year, but they're not giving us a time commitment. With the hearing lane, unfortunately, it is very, very backed up, and people are looking at the same weights that they were looking for
years and years
in the legacy system.
And so, they're frank about this.
The
chief judge says you ask for a hearing, you're going to be waiting a long time.
Years and years. Okay, so to have a hearing, to want to go to a hearing, you really got to have some kind of evidence, in-person evidence that you want to present that's going to change the course of your case. We find for us that the lane we're using the most is the evidence lane, because the VA will say something in whatever decision they made or the higher level decision, and we think that we just need a strong medical opinion or other evidence that was not considered. And if we take it to the board, we know we have a judge looking at it versus a regional office adjudicator, and we think we have a better chance of winning. What we found, though, is in that lane is there is a trap. Okay, and Carol will hit me if or not hit me, but correct me if I'm wrong here. But essentially, what happens is you get a decision, and then you have to determine what you're going to do. Okay, you have a year to appeal that decision, and so what we do is a lot of times we don't even have a C file, we don't have evidence, so we actually don't appeal it until we have everything we need, and then we appeal it, and then there's that 90-day window to put in evidence. What we have found is that if we get that evidence and we put it into the VA, we submit it to the VA, and then appeal to the board, that evidence does not get looked at by the BVA. It's this strange black hole they threw in the middle. So if you appeal, file your NOD, meaning that's your appeal, and you choose the evidence lane like we do, and then submit the evidence within the 90 days, they have to look at it. But if you submit the evidence and then appeal later, well, they're not going to look at that evidence.
So the time period is any evidence submitted between the rating decision when that was made and the appeal was done. That time period, any evidence submitted, they will not consider. So look at the date of the rating decision, look at the date you're filing the appeal, and any evidence submitted between that time period, you need to resubmit as soon as you submit the 90 days. So you have 90 days to submit evidence from the date of the appeal, but you may need to resubmit if you put something important in during that time period.
It's completely illogical.
Yes.
Basically, if you are diligent and put your evidence in as soon as possible, yet haven't appealed yet, because frankly, you might still be deciding how you appeal or what you appeal. They're going to use that against you. So, they've made this to where, you got a 90-day window and you can't put it in before, and clearly they're not going to let you put it in after. So
we also need to talk about the hearing, the third choice, the hearing choice.
Yeah.
That's another trap. You have 90 days to put in evidence after you have the hearing. So any evidence that occurred between the date of the rating decision and when the hearing occurred does not get considered. That can be several years. That can be 5 years. So you need to make sure as soon as you have that hearing, you take all that evidence and resubmit it again. What we're considering doing and what we do is when we file the appeal for the 90 days, we actually attach all the evidence. But you aren't going to be able to do that with the hearing. So what you're going to need to do as soon as the hearing is finished or during the hearing, you submit all of that evidence. If you waive the hearing, then the 90 days starts the date you waived it, and you have to submit it within the 90 days after waiver of the hearing.
Now, keep in mind, this new system was designed because the VA wants to make it easier for you to file your appeal, to put your claim together. And what we found is they have just put some tricks in there that make it to where you could lose, you could have the winning piece of evidence, and the law says they do not have to consider it. So it's extremely important when you get that, whatever you're appealing, especially it's really at the board, when you get the notice of disagreement, just read. I hate the fine print, but you got to read the fine print to make sure you know when you're submitting this.
And even sometimes reading it, it's just confusing.
Yeah, that's true too. We do have a video or a sketch, or what do you call those? An animation that we had put out a year or two ago on this that hopefully will enlighten you if you need something to look at as far as how the different lanes work and when to go. So we just want to start off just by talking about that because it is such a it's so pivotal. You get a case, they deny you, you should win, you submit the right evidence, but you don't submit the right evidence when they say you can, and they got you.
And you don't even know.
Yeah, because
they
won't
know why they denied you.
Well, and they won't let you know that they didn't consider the evidence usually. So it's just something to be mindful of. So that's our paranoid talk of the week.
Of the day.
Of the day. Okay. So we'll turn to the questions now. Mr. and Mrs. Ilse, I might have messed that up. My brain feels like it burns and I can't process thoughts for weeks at a time since VA diagnosed me with TBI and PTSD in 2012 with 100% PNT. Does this sound like a potential approval for SMCT for TBI increase? So just, backing up here. 100% is not 100% compensation in the VA. You can get special monthly compensation. What they say here is SMC. So 100% right now is like 3,100. SMC goes into increments like $300 to $400 up, all the way to about $8,600, $8,700.
Close to $9,000 a month.
Oh wow! So it's gone even higher this year. It goes up every month, every year. So SMCT is the highest you can get if you have a TBI.
Traumatic brain injury.
Traumatic brain injury. And that, again, as Carol said, is probably about $9,000 a month. So it is definitely worth looking into. They're going to want to know, do you depend on someone else? Do you have a caretaker? Can you not meet your basic needs? Do you have someone who's administering medical not procedures, but medical...
you can't remember to take your medication,
yeah.
Or you mix your medicines up, or you forget your doctor's appointments, or when you get to the doctor, you can't remember what you wanted to tell them, and you have to have somebody help you with that. Those are the symptoms of somebody with TBI who needs help.
Right.
Or maybe you get lost when you go out, or maybe you need somebody you can't even go outside without getting lost.
Yeah. So
things that have changed. You used to be able to do all these things. Now you need to make a list of things you can't do and you need help doing.
So those kind of issues would be the ones that would bring the SMCT in play. 100% means that you've got a lot of problems already with maybe memory loss, with nerve problems, with mental health conditions. But the next level up, you got to show that you're dependent essentially on someone else.
And sometimes a thing it took me years to learn, Carrie told me, is aid in attendance it's another SMC. And the original aid in attendance, you get around $4,000 altogether. But aid in attendance you can get two different aid in attendance. You can get one because the TBI has caused mental problems, confusion of medicine, forget the doctor, but it can also cause physical problems, headaches, difficulty walking. And if those physical problems also require that you need aid in attendance by themselves, along with the mental, then you have two aid in attendance. And that's a good way toward getting you the SMCT.
Yeah. Okay. Tom Green, fractured tibia in service, complaint of leg pain over 9 years, 2 or more complaints of foot and knee pain, denied both in 16 and 19, didn't write a statement at the time. It looks like he follows up. Is there any other reason they didn't service connect this? The examiner concluded plantar and plantar fasciitis with hammer toes.
But I'm not sure. Did the examiner say you have these diagnoses, or did they say you have these diagnoses and they should be service connected? I'm not sure what you're saying.
You need the doctor. The doctor would have to give a positive nexus there. So yeah, I'm not quite sure.
So they would have to say that this is related to service. They may have diagnosed you with all these problems. And I'm not sure exactly what you filed for. With the tibia, did you file for your leg problem, your knee problem, your back problem, your feet problem? If you didn't, you should file for all of those. But then what you need, since they say you have these problems, is you need that statement from a doctor. I've read your medical records, the service medical records, and I feel that what happened in service is the cause of the following diagnoses.
And then just going back to the gentleman with the TBI, filing for sleep apnea once you already have 100%. A couple things. One, should you file? It is common that it's secondary to PTSD. VA will deny that. What I look at it is if you're already 100% P&T, if you have other issues for which you're service connected, even tinnitus or hearing loss or something else that happened to you, filing for the sleep apnea could get you up an extra 60%, which would give you SMCS, which would be another $300 or $400 a month. So there is that. As far as it going back to when you originally filed in 2012, you have to have applied for it.
Right.
And unless they noted it in 2012 that it was part of your TBI, then you unfortunately are not going to get benefits there.
But remember, the aid in attendance doesn't work that way. The aid in attendance isn't to be effective the date you filed it. It should be effective the date you needed it.
You're entitled, yeah.
So if you needed it and you've proven that back to 2012, that would go back even though you hadn't filed it.
It's an open claim, right?
Right.
So, okay, American Bear went to CMP on February 2nd for feet and back. February 3rd, VA decided on both conditions. VA letter sent with rating for both and back dated each claim. Case closed. LHI is contacted me for another exam. All right.
That sounds like you're not permanent in total, so they want to see if your rating should be changed, i.e. reduce you.
Hold on. So he follows up here. He says, contacted VA. They have no record of the request. They said to call LHI, called LHI. They said it was had to do with updated DBQ in March. Do I go? I hate these. Do you go? I don't know how to tell you that or not. I mean, if the VA isn't actively.
But the problem is the VA could be wrong. And if you don't go, then the VA could reduce you for failing to attend. I think you probably need to ask for a manager, reach out, call the 800 line and say, I've been told to go to this, but I called the VA and they told me that I didn't.
Yeah, ask a manager at LHI and say, right. VA says I don't need to go to this. So, and if they agree, then I would just make a note of that, get the person's name, number, and so that if VA comes back and tries to do something, I don't like going to CMP exam. I don't like my veterans going to CMP exams if they don't have to. In your case, you went, you got the benefits you deserved. But Carol's right. If this gets back to the VA that you didn't go, then they can just do an automatic reduction.
And it's not unusual for them to give you benefits and then send you back. They want it reduced.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately something we see too often.
Okay, the bank's homestead. Once a BBA appeal is assigned to a judge, approximately how long until the hearing? Your answer.
Years. You're going to be aging.
It's frustrating because you can see that through e-benefits that your case has moved, and frankly, it brings optimism that it's actually something's going to happen. but you're still waiting in line for what year your VA Form 9 is, if this is a legacy, or what year your notice of disagreement is. Years is what we see. I mean, we see in the old system, we were seeing 2 to 4 years at least.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what it said on VA benefits. It'll say assigned to judge, and it'll say in the process of decision making or something, and it'll still take a long time. So hopefully it's moving along. I mean, it's there, it's on the judge's desk, but that doesn't mean anything.
Let me tell you something else. We just recently online, we can now access the BVA as far as where the case is. And what I have discovered is on these legacy cases, these are ones where you would have filed a VA-9. On almost every legacy case, I did not ask for a hearing, and it notes I want a hearing. And therefore, my case is sitting there for a hearing we didn't ask for. And we didn't know that they put that. So one of the things you should make sure is, if you have a legacy case, a VA-9, those are ones that are really sitting there. You need to call and say, does it show that I asked for a hearing? Because I don't want a hearing. If you don't want a hearing, because that's one thing that's holding these cases up enormously.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say, remember, if you're 75 or older, then you don't have to wait. Your case should be expedited due to age alone at the BVA, not at the regional office.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Nugent, could I lose my VA compensation if I apply for dual citizenship and live in Vietnam?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that one either. If you renounced your American citizenship,
that would be for sure.
Obviously, yeah, you would. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. Thomas, can a psychologist secondarily connect GERD with PTSD that is already service connected? Or do you need another doctor in a different specialty?
Why would you need a service connected if it's already service connected? It seems to me you just want to work on the rating.
I think he's saying that the PTSD is service connected, the GERD is not.
Oh, okay.
So technically speaking, a psychologist is not competent to do that, meaning a psychologist doesn't have the training. This is a medical question, not a psychological question. I've seen psychologists do this, and I've seen the VA accept it.
Exactly.
So
because the medication can make you sick,
right,
or make you have GERD.
Yeah. So if you have a psychiatrist, that would be the better person to do it.
Since they're medical doctors.
Yeah. But if you don't, and the psychologist is willing to do it, I've seen cases where a psychologist said that the veteran's sleep apnea or heart problem were secondary to his PTSD.
And the VA has accepted it.
Yeah. So, you go with it. Okay. Just popped down too far. I always do this. Mr. Sexton, Patrick, I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea and prescribed a machine after being denied. I was also denied hypertension. Can I do a secondary sleep apnea to PTSD and hypertension secondary to one of them? Yes and yes. How do I submit? It's that time. How do I submit a claim for neck pain correctly? Well, you want to file the form, just the supplemental claim form. If you
haven't filed it, it's a 526.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So if you've never filed a claim for neck pain, 526 is the form. You fill it out, you put in your disability. If you filed a claim for neck pain, or even if you put down there a specific diagnosis that relates to your neck, and you were denied, then you're going to need new evidence to reopen it. That could be evidence from a doctor. It could be, a statement saying this, my neck hurts. Here's how I was injured in service, and it's hurt ever since. So it just depends on whether you filed it.
If you filed a neck pain, you want to be more specific. You want to say, I have a problem with my neck. It runs down my arms into my hands. My hands are numb, or I can't raise my shoulder, or it goes down my low back. You want to be really clear about what you're applying for. Okay. Neck pain is kind of vague.
Yeah. If you have, I'd say neck pain if you don't know the specific diagnosis, right. But you're going to need a diagnosis. Okay, Hernando, when the BVA renders my decision, I was granted 20% for both my right and left knee. How long would it take for them to compensate for these issues? I'm already getting 100% for PTSD. If you do not have any other service-connected disabilities besides the PTSD in the knees, then there will be no further compensation.
Because remember, once you get 100%, in order to get more, you have to meet an SMC, special monthly compensation, one of those. So the one that you're probably looking at is the one that you have 100% for some things, but then you have this knee problem, which combined is 60% or more. So you're going to need 60% or more. So if you have other issues that go with the knee problems, anything else, you can combine those to make the 60%, but you're not going to get any money until you have a total of 60% combined or more.
In addition to that 100%.
Right.
Mr. Yang, should I use a VSO for my first time applying for a mental health claim? Yes. I mean, the beauty of what they understand is they know how to file the forms, they can get it in, they hopefully will ask you for evidence they think you need. So I think that's a great idea. Sav Fam, can you submit additional argument after you submitted your NOD?
Well, what do you mean by, yes, you can.
Yeah. Argument is not considered, written out argument or even argument at the hearing. That is not considered evidence. So you can submit that at any time. So think of the NOD as a pleading, meaning you just have to put that in there to start the clock, okay? And if you go, whether it's a direct appeal, evidence lane, or the hearing lane, you can submit it at any time because you're basically saying, here's what the evidence says, or here's why the regional office got it wrong. And go from there. Robert Ramirez, in your opinion, are there enough attorneys to represent veterans on denials or proposed reductions? Many attorneys only take specific cases, so not all of us get the opportunity for representation. I don't think there's enough attorneys to represent veterans, period. It is such a small, legally, like a niche area, small area that, most attorneys we talk to, they don't even understand what we're doing.
They don't even know there's such a thing.
Yeah. For proposed reductions in particular, we don't take those because I feel like all we end up doing is frustrating the vet, because if we were when we have taken those cases, so a vet comes to us to a proposed reduction, I saw one today where it was 70% is what he had for PTSD and was proposed to be reduced to 50. Well, by the time we get the documents back from the veteran and we ask for the C file and we get the C file, the reduction's probably already happened because we don't have any evidence to submit. We don't know what evidence they really used to reduce it. So we wait until, this is kind of our firm policy, we wait until after reductions happen because, people are paying us to help them and to be useful. And in those cases, we're not useful.
Because we know they're going to act quickly and they're going to deny, but we don't even know why they're going to deny.
And, we do take cases that have had a final reduction because, at that point, we're going to be waiting. We're going to file the appeal. You can't file an appeal on a proposed reduction. And
then we'll be able to look through the claim file is the key. It's like trying to go forward with a blindfold on until you have that claim file, because you really don't know why the VA is doing what they're doing.
All right. Noah asks, where can I find a good format example to submit a CUE, clear and unmistakable error claim? I already know the law and the regulations to cite for my claim, but just want a good legal format to submit my letter statement claim. So first of all, we just talked about earlier supplemental claims and what is it, the 226? 526.
The initial claim.
The initial claims. The VA has claims for those. The VA does not have a claim for a CUE claim. So even if you submit that, say, well, you didn't submit new evidence.
No, they're going to ignore it totally.
Or they ignore it totally. So that's something to keep in mind. As far as a format,
I think you have to attach it to a 0995, a supplemental claim, because I have in the past filed CUE claims that just sat there until the VA works on forms. They don't work on anything else. So if I file a 0995, which is a supplemental claim, they have to respond to it. So I file a 0995 claim and I write out my CUE argument there. And I say no additional evidence is needed because this is CUE or open. And remember, there are two different things. CUE is clear and unmistakable error. Open claims are claims that never were decided or they weren't decided correctly and they're open. So you need to make sure what you're telling them.
And you want the latter if you can. You want your case, you want to show it's still open, because if it's still open, you can add new evidence. You can show what laws exist now that weren't considered. So that's what you want. But as far as a template, I don't know what to tell you on that. Those are ones we have to kind of scratch
draft
out.
Each one.
Because each one's different. I would look and Rain, if you could throw up the regs again. I don't have the reg offhand, but throw up the reg for CUE. And basically, you just want to cite that and say this is a clear unmistakable error. And you have to show that the error is undebatable and that it would, what's the word they use? It would materially change the outcome of the decision. So you have to show that. It's a pretty high standard, but put that in there and just show what facts were. And you can only use the facts that were present at the time and the law that was there at the time. So you got to show through that lens how you should have won.
And that's why an open claim, people confuse open and CUE. An open claim, for instance, is one that you filed for your right knee and a decision was never made. So you filed in 1971 for your right knee, no decision was ever made. You may have filed again in 2012 and they granted you your right knee at 10% as of 2012. That's an open claim. So you want to file appeal and file that all the way back. And on that, you would file whatever the normal appeal is, whether it's a higher level review or going to the board. Okay. Another open claim would be if you hired the DAV to represent you and a copy of the decision was sent to the American Legion. That's an open claim. They have to give you and your representative copies of decisions. And you want to look for open claims because it's like Matt said, they're open. And that means you can now go in and you can have a statement from someone who knew you saying, my knee was in terrible shape, I couldn't walk. If it's CUE that you're trying to get, you can't put anything in. They're going to look at the way it was and make a decision, and they are very hard.
Mm-hmm. Ivan Borden just reviewed my exit CMP. They noted that there's a problem with my left side of my lumbar 5 and my back. I didn't have a problem prior to service. They didn't even put this in for compensation. How do I file? This is where you file the 526, open the claim. I believe as one gentleman said before, I'd get a VSO, veteran service officer, to help you. You bring the service records, and if you have any current medical records, give that to them. They can file it directly in the system and hopefully have you a decision within a couple months.
But here's
She's always got a thing.
Always got something. Here's the thing you need to do. So many times people will file for that back problem, okay? But they don't file for the radiculopathy, the pain going down. They don't file
the pain going down your legs.
The pain or the numbness down your legs. And they don't file for the depression or anxiety that this pain has been causing you. So you don't think of it as one thing. You need to think about how it has affected your entire body, and you file for everything. The highest rating most people can get for their back is 40%.
Well, most people we see is 20%.
Right.
It's very rare that we
so the way that they get higher ratings is the radiculopathy down each leg, the numbness in your feet, or urinary. What if the back problem has caused you to have to go to the bathroom all the time? That's a urinary problem. So all of those have different ratings, but if you don't ask for them, you're not going to get them.
All right, Lucy, how do you decide, and I think it's Helen Ponton, how do you decide which of your cases you'll take? You mentioned that you basically limit the number you take. We do limit the number. It's interesting in-house, if you will. Half my attorneys are so backed up with their cases that they're just not even taking any more cases. So, I think I've said this before, we tend to look at catastrophic cases. We look at cases that we know no one else will win. Like we have a lot of toxic cases, toxic exposure. I think I mentioned before, we've been doing a lot with Fort McClellan. And then special monthly compensation, those are other ones. There's cases we feel that the veteran service officers are really good at. They're good at filing cases. If there's a simple thing to find, like where we were talking about here, gentleman's talking about neck pain. If everything else is in there and they say, hey, look, we need to go to your doctor and get an actual diagnosis. Those are the kind of cases that you shouldn't be paying an attorney for, and B, we don't think that's something that that's
we think you have a good chance of winning on your own
without us. So that's kind of where we are right now, but it's just so easy for us to become overwhelmed. Like someone asked earlier, there's just not enough attorneys doing this. And we've seen firms go out of business because they took so many claims. They did a very poor job on the quality side of handling the cases, and they just, they couldn't afford all the folks necessary to actually process the claim. So
when we started this firm, our feeling was I want to treat each claim like I would treat my dad's, who was in the Army. And I don't want to change that. And if we take too many cases, then that's not going to happen. So I really hate it that we can't take more claims, but this is why we do what we're doing here today, is to see if we can help the people that we haven't been able to take.
All right, Mike Oliver, my, in quotation marks, year to appeal ends in August. VA never looked at evidence in our file. All pertinent new evidence was timely entered. If evidence exists in record, why would one need to supply them again? I mean, you're preaching to the choir, Mike. So on your rating decision, there will be a list of evidence. Okay, so you definitely want to look on there to see if your evidence was put in there. If it was not, you can use that evidence again to reopen a new claim. Frustrating as that is, that's really your only choice. I mean, you could ask for a higher level review at that point, or even go to the board and say that this was submitted on this date and it was not in there. Best they're going to do is kick it back down to that original adjudicator and say, look at this again. So that is frustrating, and that is something, again, that's something else
we deal with every day.
Getting lost in the system. All right, Jay Moreau. I have MRIs. A doctor diagnosed me with pain radiating to my legs from my lower back. Evidence examiner contradicted herself in the CMP report. Done higher level review, denied. What options do I have now? If you feel like your doctor had, you've got a strong opinion from your doctor, and I know you're talking about a lot of times the doctor in the CMP check one box here saying, hey, you have radiculopathy, and they'll check some other box saying, no, there's no other pain. I think you should take that to the board if that's the kind of strong evidence you have. So an NOD.
You might want to think of taking that to your doctor and saying, this is what this person said. Could you just write a short little note saying, this is inaccurate. I treat this person, and this is what he has.
If you do that, and your doctor's willing to do that, that's what I would do. Then what you want to do is you want to go the evidence lane at the Board of Veterans Appeals. But remember, you got to file that NOD, ask for the evidence lane, and then hand in your evidence.
Right.
Okay, Noah served 2 branches of military. Should a rater have made an assumption of a pre-existing condition when only using evidence of the latter service term and not reviewing the first term of service? So they were not consecutive. It sounds like there was a break between the two. And when there is, they're going to do an entrance exam both times. So if the second tour had, your entrance exam said there's a pre-existing problem, and you're saying, let's say it's pre-existing back problem, and you're saying that the problem started in the first, first tour, then yes, they need to consider that. I mean, they can't just be blind. And so, yes, this would be my answer. They should be considering if it pre-existed, well, when did it start? Did it start in childhood, or did it start in that first tour?
And do they have these records? Do they just have the records from the second tour and not the first? That's a very common problem, especially if you had 2 different services.
Yeah. Okay, Dax, hello. If I'm under IU and I reach 100% later due to other disabilities, can I drop my IU status, get back to work, not lose my 100%? Yes, you can drop the IU status, you can get to 100%. Yes, I think it's a short answer there. Okay. Don Range, I'm sorry, I'm killing these names, was raped in 06 by a superior who had evidence of my being homosexual, so I never reported. Sick call for rectal bleeding and was placed on psych meds. Still worried they'll deny me no report. Obviously
you have a good claim. You need a doctor who's going to say that you have MST, it's related to the service, and outline it for you. I think you have a good claim, and you don't want the VA to mess it up. You have exactly the evidence that they should be looking for to show that this happened.
They're going to make the decision before you get your evidence in, most likely. But the sick, don't worry about reporting it. Okay.
Yes.
The VA has had to admit in front of Congress that these issues are underreported and underrecorded. Okay. So even if they say people don't report them because they're embarrassed or they feel pressure, and even those who report them, the superior officer usually just throws them out or doesn't put it in the file. So, but the fact that you had that sick call and that you were on the psych meds, those are flags that VA now acknowledges that can show that your stressor did happen.
And if this had been, let's say, more than 2 years ago, I would have said, hire a lawyer, you're going to need a lawyer. But they have changed. There's been so much pressure on the VA to stop denying these cases, to actually evaluate them, that I have seen a number of cases approved on the initial claim.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, if they don't, you've got a good case, and don't stop until you've got what you deserve.
Yeah.
Now, and the other thing, go ahead. The other thing that I've started telling my veterans is a lot of times the VA denies you because they say, okay, prove it. You need to prove this happened. Well, all you have to prove is when you went in the service, you didn't have any mental problem. When you got out, you had a problem. You even were treated in the service.
Right.
And so sometimes it's easier just to say, I have acquired psychiatric disorder.
Or mental health condition.
Or a mental health condition. And that way you don't have to prove anything happened. You just have to show I was fine when I went in and I wasn't when I went out. So you decide, but I find that much easier to win.
Right.
But you actually have a really good documented case, I think.
Right. And so the point is, don't give up, even if, unfortunately, I still find that CMP doctors will railroad people in
Yes.
these traumatic assault situations.
And you ask what cases we take? That's one of the cases we take because we have seen them before. You had to go to the board. You just did not win at the regional office. And so we take those cases.
Yeah. And so I'd say there's still an old school NVA that gets
Yes.
this wrong. And yeah, those are cases that if they get wrong, you're probably going to need a really strong medical opinion.
And you're going to need to go to the board.
But yeah, but wait, see what they say. But as Carol said, keep on going if they messed it up. JT, I was granted 70% May of 19 plus IU, plus IU 8940 filed, and then, but I stopped working June of 14. The 4192 stated I quit due to service-connected post office job. JT, I'm not sure.
Are you saying you thought they should go back to 2014? Mm-hmm. If you are, the reason they're doing 2019 is because it sounds like that's when you filed the claim for mental. So you had to have at least a 70% rating or a 60% rating back to 2014 to get IU. So
yeah. If you have more information, hopefully we can get a little more detail on that. Noah, what is the average response time for a CUE claim for regional office?
Years.
Yeah, it's going to take years, and the probability of the regional office getting it right is less than 10%, and it's probably greater than 50%, as Carol said, that they just flat out ignore it, and then the rest of it, I'd say it's them just kicking it back.
Just yesterday, I filed an 0995 again because I had 3 letters going back 3 years for CUE. They just ignore them.
Pablo, my score, I'm assuming that's rating, my score is 94%, thus rated at 90%, and got my TDIU. I'm now suffering strong insomnia. As of now, I'm 70% for PTSD with TBI and 50% for sleep apnea. Should I file an insomnia to get a natural 100%? So the catch here is there's a concept in VA called pyramiding, meaning that you can't get a rating for one disability and another disability if they have overlapping symptomatology. So the insomnia would most likely be part of a 30% rating for PTSD. So
or it could be part of sleep apnea.
Well, yeah, or sleep apnea. So I would say no. I don't think you're going to win that.
Yeah.
Jim Lester, I need help on my knee that was hurt in the military 40 years ago. So Jim, I'd start with filing a claim, talk to a DRO, look, you want to pull your service medical records, see if there's something in there, hopefully that shows, corroborates what you say happens, basically, showing that you had treatment of some kind or you're put on some kind of limited duty, and then get a VSO to help you file that.
And even if you don't have that, or if you do have that, get a statement in to the VA that you write about what happened in the service to hurt your knee and the fact that it's continuing. And if you have a witness, someone who knew you before service and after, get a statement from them saying you had no physical or mental problems prior to service, but I noticed when you came out, you limped or you had a problem with your knee or whatever, okay? Document the claim as well as you can. And remember, unfortunately, people die. So I wouldn't wait to get somebody who knew you back then to help you with a statement that proves that you were injured in the service.
Agreed. All right, let's see. I have been, Mr. Hines, I've been in for 5.5 years. I have no diagnosis for anything up until recently. It's irritability and anger, recurrent depressive disorder, but I have little to no record. What do you recommend? Okay, so what you need is a current diagnosis now. If you have recurrent depressive disorder, that's your current diagnosis. What you need in service is if you have any service medical records showing you treated for that, if your service records themselves show that that you had a problem, you were getting knocked down as far as knocked down a rank, or if you were knocked down on your just performance reports, those could be evidence of it being related to service. So you just need to show what happened in service and show some kind of evidence of that, or a buddy statement saying, hey.
Or the 41, those statements. Yeah. Those statements are powerful. Veterans don't realize that because often they only deal in the regional office. They don't go to the board. The board reads every one of those statements, and the board has to say why they aren't believable. So if you have people saying this, the board can't disregard what you're saying without a good reason. The regional office is going to ignore them. They don't care what you say. They don't care what any witnesses say. But those are valuable when you get to the board.
Okay, Pablo asked if you, once he hits a combo 100% or a straight 100% rating, what happens to TDIU? Should I try to get a part-time job or full-time job if I can get hired? They will basically just call your TDIU moot. They will get rid of it. I mean, but you'll be paid the same. So it's, they'll transfer names basically. Yes, you can try to get a job and see what happens from there. Okay, I did it again. All right. Okay, Mr. Mike Oliver, my claim appeals in the 15th year took almost 8 years to get to the court. That's we see that, unfortunately. All right, I have another one here that I missed. Okay, sorry if I missed yours. This thing jumps around on me. I apologize. Corey, I just had a comp and PIN for PTSD. I also have a claim for TBI on the same claim. I've asked to have the TBI part deferred and a decision made on the PTSD. Will they? They're going to do whatever they want. I mean, I understand that sometimes TBI takes a little bit longer on the CMP exams. What you say makes sense. I've seen where they've done that, where they've actually just issued the decision and deferred the other claim. But if you ask for it, I don't think they'll give it to you because they just do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. Paul, I'm 100% P&T. Should I keep filing? 55 years old. My worry is that having the VA open all my disabilities as I have had happened before. To me, this is a cost-benefit analysis. What do you have to gain by filing another claim or filing an increase in this claim? Usually folks do not have much to gain as far as
it depends. I mean, there are some people that can make a lot of the SMC. So if you are, did he say what he was disabled for? Say you're disabled for mental. If you have sleep apnea, if you have headaches, if you have erectile dysfunction, there are a lot of things that are caused or related to mental. So it's not that they're going to evaluate the mental again, but they will evaluate these claims. So say that you have 100% for mental and you get a combined rating of 60, that's another 300. If you have erectile dysfunction, that's another 130 or 50. If you have a need for somebody to help you with daily activities, then you're going up into the 4,000. So just because
that's not everybody though.
That's not everybody.
If you're looking to get increased ratings on all the ratings that combined 100%, I just would be careful with that, because you still got to show that one of those ratings, one of those issues causes you either to be unemployable or is a straight 100%.
But usually with the VA, they don't give money away for free. And usually if you have 100% and you actually have these other problems, then you should go for them. I don't think that's a problem at all.
That's why we have two attorneys here. We have differing opinions. I say
you think I'd be more aggressive than you?
I say let sleeping dog lie unless you know that you're going to be able to get more benefits. That's what I'd say.
I hate the VA turning down people, and I'm going to give them the most money they can get.
She takes a shotgun when she goes to the VA. I take a pen. All right, Ryan Marshall, how do I get a copy of both my military medical records? Also, can you explain the difference between C-file versus blue file versus military medical records? Okay, what's the form S-180 for the C-file?
Yes.
You're writing to the, you can write to the VA or you can write to the National Archives saying, I want a copy of my file. The difference between your C-file and your blue file and military records, well, your C-file should have everything. Your C-file is the globe. It should have everything in it, okay? What happened in service, what was written down both in your service medical records and your service personnel records. And then it also should have all evidence that was used currently as far as with diagnosis or
every claim
medical
you
records.
filed, every CMP exam, all of the evidence that's been sent in, all of the ratings, but it doesn't necessarily have your military personnel file, I think. Usually
It doesn't, unless there's, yes, sometimes they specifically don't, or they just
for whatever
specifically just
reason,
ask for the service medical records. And if that's the case, then you would want to ask the VA or the National Archives for those records.
So military personnel records and service medical records, which are the medical records of what happened to you and your entrance and exit exam, those are two different things. So sometimes they send in the military personnel file because they haven't found much in the service medical, but most of the time they do not add it unless you ask for it. So that's my experience.
Okay, Michael Vihar granted 90%, 92% last month. At my CMP exam, the examiner noted 4 additional claims I should claim.
Wow.
If my ratings increased to 95, would it be considered sedular, and would the compensation be back pay? Yes on the first part, maybe on the second part, in that the VA, if it was noted in your claim stream, meaning like you filed for back, and at the CMP exam, they said, well, yes, you have your back service connected and it's worse. And oh, by the way, part of that is your radiculopathy. That would go back. Other claims, it's tricky. It's kind of a case basis as I see it.
Yeah, but that's great. You should definitely file for those.
Yeah. Okay, Tom Green, foot claim was denied under.
Wait a minute. You should file for those, and you should point out that the compensation and pension exam said to do that, so they don't just send you out for another exam without noting what that examiner had said. You may not need another exam.
Right. Tom Green, foot claim was denied under IDES. This is how I know the doctor's remark. Tibia never claimed. Knees, I am waiting for C-file for clarification. I would file the knees and the tibia now, and I'd refile the foot claim saying it's secondary to those issues. So don't wait for the evidence.
Don't
file
wait.
it, okay, and say, hey, the evidence to prove my claim should be in the C-file, but don't wait because you're losing months of benefits if you do that. LJ, if you are 100% P&T mental health, can you file for housebound? Yes. Remy 86, hello, can I connect my service? Can I connect my sleep apnea to my service connected major depressive disorder? Yes, you're going to need an outside exam to do that, but those two can be connected.
And it used to be that they were only approved at the BVA, but they were approved at the BVA if you had the evidence. Now I'm finding the regional office has started to approve, I'd say 20% of them.
Yeah. David Dodson, getting conflicting advice. Option A, file PTSD alone. Option B, filing PTSD and sleep apnea with nexus PTSD together. Option B is what we would go with.
File them both.
Because, let's say you get service connected for PTSD 3 years from now, and then you file the claim for sleep apnea. Well, that's 3 years of sleep apnea you lost. Carol and I differ on I guess a greater point would be, I don't like to file things just to file things. Like we get vets come to us.
I'm not filing just to file. If they have a problem,
I'm just saying, we get vets come to us who filed 10, 15, 20, 50 issues. If I'm looking at that as adjudicator, and I feel like I can see this, it's easiest for them just to flat out deny everything. And so you want to, this is one where I would file both. That's easy. But, if somebody's saying file, you just need to say, yeah, my hands do hurt. I do have, arthritis, but is that related to service? I can't really say that it is.
So don't file those.
So don't file those.
Yeah. You don't want to trash up your claim by filing for stuff that is not related to service, but you do want to file everything that's related. Remember, these CMP examiners, they have different ones for mental, different ones for physical, and sometimes you get somebody that's never going to prove anybody, and then you get on a different claim somebody that's fair. So you don't know which claims are going to be approved by the VA. So file every one that you have and you think is service connected.
Okay, it's that time. Can I secondarily connect neck pain to 20% lumbar pain? MRI says I've gotten progressively worse.
Those are hard cases because a lot of the doctors will say the back doesn't go up,
I'm not a doctor.
I'm not either.
And I play one sometimes with my clients, but I agree with Carol that your spine is one spine, but I've never had an orthopedic surgeon grant side with me on that. So
because what we do when we ask for opinion, we ask about all these different issues. Are these ones you could support? And we've routinely had, no, I can't do the neck as a part of the back. Now, if when they fell, they hurt their lower back and their upper back, then they can do that, but not the lower back causing the upper back problem.
and this question kind of goes in a similar vein. Jacques, decision letter states favorable finding for qualifying event, disability found for IBDS, in-service treatment for cervical pain, denied no link to current. Should next step be getting a good nexus? Yes. Damian Wallace, my PT assistant, told me I have drop foot and slap foot. I'm 20% for my back and 10% for both knees. Should I file?
Ooh, that's a 60 or 80% rating right there.
And that's the crazy thing Carol was talking about. You can be 20% for your back. That's a hard rating to get. Yet if it causes drop foot, that's 60 to 80% on top.
And remember, you want to file it as a complication of your back.
Or secondary.
Well, here's the thing. Secondary, then you're stuck with the date you filed. If it's a complication, then you can argue that this should go back to when I filed for my back, if that's an open claim, because this is all part of my back problem.
Okay. George, I accidentally forgot to file my claim for anxiety as secondary. Will they deny it since there's no primary service connection, or can they connect it as secondary? They are supposed to look at the VA, believe it or not, is tasked to see, they have a duty to assist you to prove your claim. Okay, so they have to consider all legal theories, not just the theory you present to them. So if you present an anxiety and it's related directly to service, they have to also say, well, could it be related to your service-connected back, or could it be related to your service-connected migraines? So they have to consider that. Now, will they screw that up? Sure. If you don't see that in the rating decision that they had considered it that way, that's when I would appeal to higher level review.
Exactly.
That's a legal question. And hopefully, those can turn out.
And you want to use this language, duty to assist. There was a failure in the duty to assist, because that will get their attention, and usually they'll send it back and have you go for another CMP exam and evaluate the real issue.
Okay, 11, super life. I am 20% for ruptured disc in my neck. I have arthritis in it now. I also have bad headaches because of it. Should I file for increase in secondary rating for both those? Yes. All right. John Price, is there a good resource for PTSD or other conditions, psychologist, psychiatrist, expert, that can fill out a nexus or DBQ? I don't have I don't have that. I mean, if you have a DBQ, the best person trying to get it filled out is your doctor. If it's a VA doctor, I know a lot of times they'll say no. But
sometimes it's worth the money to go to a private doctor, or under this new having to have a doctor within 30 days, the VA has to send you out if they can't give you one. So maybe you can have them paying for a private doctor and then get that person to do the DBQ.
Yeah. Floyd Langford, this is fascinating. Can a registered pharmacist PhD do a DBQ and nexus letters for adverse reactions from VA pharmacy medication? Yeah, I'd say yeah too. I've never had that, but that's, again, they're competent to do that because they know the medication and they know how the medication interacts with your body. So that's interesting, Floyd. Come back to us and tell us what you get on that, because that'd be fascinating to see. Jessica Park, my husband is already SMCS. So basically that means they've got 100% for something, and either they're homebound, can't leave the house, or have a 6%. On top of that, how do I get SMCL for aid and attendance? Do I have primary care fill out the form, or a psychologist? He has 90% for PTSD, sleep apnea 50%, and eczema 60%. Okay, so if you're SMCS there, that means that one of those has to be IU, because you have to have one that's 100%.
So it's going to be the PTSD.
Yeah, that's what I would think. You get the PTSD doctor, psychologist doctor to give you that increased rating. Okay, we did that one. Steve, 1961P. Do you have a list of people who have been lied to, saying their records burned up in a fire? I don't have a list of those.
They don't have a list, but it's something they've been saying for years.
Yeah. Aaron Lee served in the U.S. Air Force as Thailand security policeman. Claim for hyperthyroid in 2016 was rejected, reapplied March 21. Will VA go back to 2016, since now it's presumptive. Yeah, yes, they should. That's
Thailand.
Oh,
So I don't think they will.
yeah, you're gonna. I mean, you can, but you're gonna. That's a tricky legal argument there. They should.
They should, but what they're doing is people that were in country, and they're supposed to do it for blue and brown water sailors, but they're not even doing it for them. We're having to fight for that.
And then Aaron asked, will the hyperthyroid claim slow down my PTSD IU? It should not. Does it sometimes happen? Yes, they're still, VA is still promulgating the regulations on the new Agent Orange issues like hyperthyroid.
But remember, what used to slow, and this is why sometimes the information you get from VSOs is antiquated. It used to be if you had a claim and then you filed another claim, you could slow down the claim because there was only one file and it was a paper file. And everybody needed that file. Now it's online. So somebody can be working on one claim while somebody else is working on another. So it should not slow it down at all.
Let's see, Mr. Nuttall. I received a letter stating I can't raise my disability anymore, yet my condition's getting worse. I have an upcoming appointment with doctor. What should be done? So that depends on what the condition is. You know, tinnitus maxes out at 10%. Migraines max out at 50%. You have to, the whole premise of their rating code is they are supposed to compensate you to the degree to which it prohibits your work. Okay. If it, you know, so that's what that's how they're supposed to be viewing your disability. So if your disability, you know, when you say getting worse, some disabilities get worse, but if it doesn't devolve or doesn't decrease your ability to work, they're not going to compensate you for that. If it is getting worse and you're maxed out, like migraines, you can still apply for unemployability if you're not working full time or not working at all, and that's under 38 CFR 4.16B, and that's basically another way to get unemployability. Much harder because it has to be the VA central office that approves that versus the regional office. But if that's the case, then that's really your only way to go.
And just as a precaution, did you get that you're maxed out from reading the regs yourself or from a letter from the VA?
From a letter.
Oh, okay, good. From a letter because a lot of times the VA will say, this is a full grant.
Right. Well, no, well, he says, I can't raise, it's this one, can't raise the rating anymore.
Oh, okay.
If you have secondary conditions though, that's
right.
Another way to do it. All right. Best advice for CMP exams. Describe your symptoms on the worst day. I agree with that. It's that time. How do I prove aggravated flat feet, and what section of the CFR speak to this? I don't know that off the top of my head. Efrain, if you could throw up the CFRs. You're talking about aggravation. An aggravation of a pre-service disability is 38 CFR 3.306. So I'd look there, but that's you want to look through the other regs as well. Let's see. Frank Ledbetter, I have 70% PTSD since I have sleep apnea, diabetes type, and GERD, and secondary stage hypertension. Are those secondary to PTSD? Sleep apnea, yes. Diabetes is a little trickier. You know, if you can show that you were inactive and maybe you had weight gain that caused that, that could be a case. That's a lot harder. Hypertension.
Well, and don't forget, sleep apnea can cause hypertension. Sleep apnea can cause diabetes. Yeah. So if you're found service, you can get sleep apnea from PTSD, and then you can get these others secondary to the sleep apnea. If you Google online complications of sleep apnea, it will show you all that. Sorry.
It's a dog. This is we're still working from home. Yeah, it's that time. Peripheral neuropathy. Is peripheral neuropathy and multiple myeloma on the first Gulf War presumptive list? If yes, where? They're not that I know of. I mean, those are ones that you can prove. A lot of, but it's one you have to prove through direct service connection. Rick Hernandez. I filed in December 2019 service connection injuries from airborne jumps. Lost my business in June 2018. Living in my car. Applied for expedited hardship November 2020, unemployability, homeless, no rating. you got to keep on pushing that unemployability there, or excuse me, that hardship, and do whatever you can to show them, that's where you're living.
If you go online, you look for leader. I don't know which state you're in, a regional office. You need to go online and look for leadership VA regional office in Atlanta, say, and they will show you who the director is, and you email that director and the assistant director and everybody else on that page with what's going on with you. And that's the way to get them to move.
Okay, I'm getting the sign here we got to wrap up, so we're going to do a couple more questions and then wrap up for today. And I'm see if I can answer some new people I haven't talked to yet. Why is VA rejecting most sleep apnea claims? VA hates sleep apnea. That's kind of,
we've heard that for years.
Yeah, it's that's my answer. They don't publish it.
But it's getting better. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Before, you had to go to the BVA. They never approved them, and now I'm seeing them approved at least 20% of the time on the initial claim.
Yeah. Okay, Rod M. I completed a back exam last month for an increase. The nurse only spent 3 minutes discussing my back and didn't complete an ROM, range of motion test. I requested another appointment. Will it get approved? I would write them a letter and say exactly what you just said.
Exactly.
We spent 3 minutes. Say if they touched you, just be as detailed as possible what was done in that 3 minutes and what was not done, range of motion specifically.
And you can say, if you look on the CMP exam, she's reporting this, but none of it was done. So I don't know where she's getting these figures from.
Joseph Howard, I have a DBQ form filled out from my psychiatrist. I started my claim almost 2 years ago. Haven't received an answer yet. It's 2 years ago, so you're in the AMA. I don't know what to tell you about that. They seem to be taking longer and longer. What should you do? I'd write it.
I'd write the status report. What's the status of the claim I filed on this date? And remember, if you don't get one, go into the leadership of the regional office. They don't want to get in trouble. Yeah. Now, there's some that don't respond at all, but the majority of them are either going to make sure you're answered. They're going to tell their second in command, take care of this, but don't let them, if you keep waiting, nothing's going to happen.
Okay. What is the state of Gulf War filings? If you mean by what are the new, there is talk of having new legislation passed to make some more presumptive findings. There's talk, I think some people, it's been written out in a bill, but I have not seen that move forward at all. So
there's no law yet.
Yeah, there's no law. Okay, let's see. Brian Walton, hello. If you are 100% P&T for PTSD, if you file housebound, can this lower your VA percentage or reopen your case? I can't lower your percentage. You would get an increased rating. Would they look at your underlying disability PTSD? I think they would. Is there a possibility they could try to reduce it? I believe there's always a possibility, but if you're at 100%, that shows a lot.
But normally they're just going to fill out the SMC form, the DBQ for aid and attendance.
Okay. Carlos, Mr. Flores, I don't quite understand it. I honestly believe that Mr. Hill goes after what he feels is not compatible with winning my claims. I'm not quite sure what that means. She's the one who files all the claims, so but I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on there. Jez Guzman, I had a RFE for TBI, and now I have claims for migraines, IBS, PTSD, and depression, but I never filed any additional claims. Is this normal? I don't understand. You never filed them, but if you never filed them, but they issued claims for those, that would be they actually did their job and saw that there was something in your records to where those should be considered.
I've never seen that though. Yeah, usually they ask if at all, they ask if you want to file a claim for these.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Marshall, I tested for sleep apnea in service and was told I was fine, but should sleep on my side. And then the VA gave me a sleep study and they gave me a CPAP with moderate apnea. Unfortunately, it was a month or two past the 1 year mark. You should still file if you had those findings in service.
You had the symptoms and you were complaining.
Yeah. you don't have to have the diagnosis in service. You have to have symptoms, as
Right.
Carol said. Okay. Shoot. Well, we're going to do one or two more. LJ, is it a hard claim putting in for housebound when you are already 100% mental and over 55? Frankly, your age doesn't matter. The disability doesn't matter. What matters is, can you basically not leave the house unless you're going to the doctor or the grocery store or something like that? Okay, let's see. While in service, I rescued a shipmate attempting suicide. I filed for PTSD. Should I wait for my sleep apnea, migraine, IBS? File it all now. No,
file it all now.
Just be heard. SPC just found out the appeal for lumbar and cervical was denied, even though I submitted LODs and records. I'm still in physical therapy today. What to do? You should. I think
you need a nexus.
File an appeal. You need a nexus, but then you also need to show that there was increased rating there. All right, so we'll do one last one here. Let's see. All right. Mr. Dyson, why is it difficult to connect service-connected? Why is it difficult to connect chronic fatigue syndrome secondary to PTSD? I've been denied CFS as secondary. Do I need to go to a CFS specialist? If you have a CFS specialist, great, but I think a regular doctor.
I think
as well.
Chronic fatigue is so difficult to win. The VA doesn't believe in it. It's like it's magic. And so the better quality doctor you have as far as specialist, the better chance. These are hard cases, so I would go for the best.
Yeah. Okay, I lied. One last question. Mario Williams, what needs to be proven to get SMC-M for loss of use of hands? So you have to already have, 100% rating. And there's a couple other underlying ratings that have to happen. But as far as the hands themselves, it's your dexterity. It's your use of hands in a normal way. And so you have to show that the VA has to show, if you are unable to do the normal things you can do with your hands, then you can prove loss of use. So like buttoning this button, if this were a regular button and I couldn't button it, that goes to loss of use. If I have shoes and I can't tie my laces very well, that also goes to show loss of use. It goes to show
need for aid and attendance.
Right. So which would be kind of a foundation of
because remember, it goes up. But the key test it's supposed to be is, can you pick up a coin off the center of a table without sliding it to the side? If you can't do that, then that's one of the things that shows loss of use of hands.
Yeah. Last thing, Anthony Fulmore, is there anything new on toxic exposure for McClellan? If we got a somewhere people can go for this link or website, we just put up some videos on what we found on Fort McClellan. We had gone to the National Archives, done some additional research, done some kind of looking into what was used there in terms of herbicides and what we're proposing on how you can win your claim on that and prove it. So I don't know, Ephraim, if we have that. If we don't, we'll put that up on our website, just kind of a flyer or something saying, hey, click here for these videos. And there'll be things to download off of that as far as information we found. There it is right there. Fort McClellan campaigns right there. Okay, folks, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
As you see between me and Carol, I don't know if there's a right answer on everything, but we do things differently. We've had a chance, we've been fortunate, I believe, to win most of the cases we handle, but there's different ways of going about it. And it's always nice to have Carol's perspective on this as well. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you all next time on this space. And until then, have a wonderful week.
Be well.
Be well.